good. That's a very good idea, actually. Yeah. Very good idea.
Everyone knows Ted Lasso. Everyone knows who he is, and
Exactly.
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, he was at that Concacaf event.
Yes,
actually,
we invited him. Yeah, the one you were at. Yeah, he was there. Yeah. So, but all right.
Well, Footy Prime fans, you recognize the voice there. It's a longtime friend of the show, Victor Montagliani, Concacaf president, FIFA vice president. It's a big week for North American football, especially here in the Great White North with the Champions Cup, of course. So we're going to get to 5 really important questions, big questions affecting North American soccer shortly. But we had an off-camera conversation there before you jumped on, Vic, about long sleeves, gloves, tights in cold climates. Cold climates? Cold climates. What is your thoughts? Because I know some of us are very, very anti-tights, no matter what the conditions. We even don't like gloves particularly much, unless you're a goalkeeper. What is your opinion on such things?
You can't wear tights, man. Are you kidding me? You can't wear tights. Like gloves is maybe, and they have to be like, they can't be gloves that your mom used to put on, mitts. They gotta be logoed with whatever kit you're wearing, and they have to be look form. Maybe that I might be okay with. Although a lot of the kits now have that thing you can put your finger in there, right? So,
what's that for, by the way?
Huh?
What's that for? The hole? I never figured it out.
Well,
Lulu had that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's for those situations, but no, you can't wear tights. No way. So, by the way, you want to hear a funny story about tights? Yeah. So,
always.
my first, I'm in Zurich, and my first January 2017. It's the first Legends game. Now they have a Legends program at FIFA, right? It's the first one, and it's in Zurich, and it's like it's Switzerland, right? So it's January. It's like 3 degrees. They just plow the snow off the pitch on the pitch near the thing, and we're all in the. So we all go in, get in the dressing room. Your name's up there, all the kits there, and I look, and my name is right next to the stall of Diego Maradona, right? Brilliant. So I've gotten to know Diego over the years. He comes in, right? He's like the king. It doesn't matter who's in the room, even if it's Messi, whatever, it doesn't matter. He's the king. So he gets in. I put on it's cold out, right? I put on my shorts, no tights, right? No tights, and I wear short sleeve shirt, right? It's 4 degrees. He looks at me, he goes, "Está loco." He goes, "Are you crazy?" I go, "No." I said, "No, estoy canadiense." I said, and he goes, "You gotta," he goes, so then they throw him some stuff and he's putting on tights, but he can't get in them, right? It goes a little bit bigger at that moment in time in his life, right? He goes, "Papi, help me." So here I am holding the tights, and he's stuffing himself into the tights, and I'm like, right? Locking him into his tights. Highlight of my career, man. Like, how many times you get to put tights on the greatest player in the world? But that's the only guy that's allowed to wear tights. All right. So
you didn't have to take them off, though, did you?
No.
That was a 3-man job.
Diego, you're on your own there. Yeah.
There's some great moments in Canadian soccer history, right? Iconic moments. That might be the number one.
Yeah.
That should be a PSA. Should be seen the CPC. Heritage moments should be,
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to it, Victor. So 5 questions, really important questions, we think, affecting North American soccer. We're going to start with Craig, your boy, Stacks. Craig, obviously, is this around what's going to happen this week here in North America with the Concacaf Champions Cup?
Yeah, the Champions Cup. What is there? 27 teams, 10 different countries. How do you like this format that we're at right now with the Champions Cup, and how do you see it affecting Canadian teams in a negative or positive way?
Yeah, so I think like any business, right? You go step by step, right? You can't do it all at once. So we really, I thought, fixed the national team sort of ecosystem with our Nations League, right? And that kind of fixed the problem of having, I would say, 75% of our countries play single-digit games over a 4-year period. Quite frankly, Canada was almost one of them, although we would play maybe a dozen, but we wouldn't play 40 in that 4-year span. And so then we needed to really look at the club ecosystem. And yes, we had a Champions League, but you know what? It was not as robust as it is now. So what we did was we created cup competitions regionally. So you have Leagues Cup in the US, you have Caribbean Cup, Central American Cup, and then in Canada you have the Canadian Championship, and now with the CPL they get 2 berths. So those competitions all feed into our Champions Cup, which is starting this week. And what happens is that prepares the teams to play into that round. And that's why you're starting to get results like last night, where the Haitian team, right, lost 2-0 in the 90th. On the 90th minute goal was the second goal. They actually equalized 1-1 against a big Mexican powerhouse. So you're starting to now get club, our club licensing is also now robust. And so with our Champions Cup, it was an opportunity for our leagues to compete, not only with the big boys. That happens in every Champions League, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in South America, but also give them an opportunity to get a significant amount of games and give them that carrot. The Canadian Championship is now way more important than it used to be because it gives you a berth, right? The CPL now, obviously, these teams, as you could see with tonight's game coming up with Forge, those are opportunities not only for the clubs, but also for the players to really advertise themselves to get to the next level. Because at the end of the day, other than maybe 5 leagues in the world, or actually probably 1 league in the world, every league is a selling league. Let's be honest, right? It depends who you sell to. So it's an opportunity to showcase yourself as a player in a competitions like the Champions Cup. And so for us, we've made a big investment in things that you don't necessarily see, right? Club licensing, cup competitions, regionalized. And obviously, because of the brand increasing, obviously having some tremendous finals that we've had along the way, now the value of the Champions Cup is increased, where this last year we started by increasing the prize money in the Champions Cup. And the great thing is now we've parlayed that into our W strategy, where now we're going to have a women's Champions Cup. So a little bit different format, but that's going to grow exponentially as well. So the club ecosystem is really our next frontier, and it's really started off, I think, tremendously with our Champions Cup last year, and obviously this week starting off our next edition.
I know CPL was delighted with 2 berths. Did you see a scenario down the line where there's more berths from Canada as that league expands?
I think as Craig said, it is 27 because there's a bit of a play-in, but it's 24, and I see that expanding because it's a cultural shift. Okay, and the best example of the cultural shift is the MLS. So when I first started here with the Champions League and now become the Champions Cup, most MLS teams were like, "Oh, we need to win an MLS Cup," right? I could tell you the vast majority of MLS team, if not all of them, prioritize the Champions Cup now because they know that is, for most of us, even on this call, that's not a surprise to you as an individual because you've grown up in a footballing culture, whether it's in your home or whether as former players, right? But the reality is that culture has shifted now in the MLS. And if you talk to any owner, any president, they actually prioritize, we got to get in the Champions Cup and we need to win it. And they also have seen how that parlays into the Club World Cup now. So now there's an even bigger carrot. Part of that's prize money, but part of that is, having something on your wall as a club. And I know TFC, for instance, they have that trophy thing in there. I don't know if it's a dress room or where it is. Maybe Jimmy knows better than me, where they have the MLS Cup, but above it is an empty space for the Champions Cup. Because when they win that's where they want to put it. Yeah. That is a cultural shift in North America, right? And now understanding, international football is more relevant than domestic football, because domestic football really is the entry-level international football. And that's where you make your bones, and that's where your club becomes a big club, is on the international arena. Real Madrid is Real Madrid, not because they won 20 La Liga championships, It's because they won 10? No, how many? 15.
15, I think. Yeah.
15. Let's be honest, right? And so that culture now is starting to really grow here in our sort of confederation, and specifically in North America, being, not so much Mexico. They've gotten it for a long time, but especially in Canada and US.
Yeah, that term, in European football, competing for the European spots, that's almost, you hear that more than saying we're going for the championship here, right? That's an attainable goal. Now, there's more levels of tournaments to understand that, but that's just that cultural shift there, which, I imagine you want to see here soon as well. All right, Jimmy, your next big question for Victor.
All right. Well, we understand the CONCACAF headquarters are moving to Dominican Republic. What is the vision for CONCACAF with this move?
You see Victor's face.
Jimmy, do you work for Fox News?
He doesn't work for anyone. But he's available. As
any animal, fox, cat,
holler, anyone.
Available to the highest bidder.
He'll be at Tim Hortons field tonight at 7 with his resume on his back.
No, we are not moving. Our HQ is in Miami. We have regional offices in Kingston and Guatemala City. Dominican Republic will be our technical center, our home of football, as we call it, where we launched it. We did the sort of shovel ceremony last year. We're just in the process with architects and all that kind of stuff, dealing with the locals in terms of land surveying or whatever you do. And so that will be the home of football, but it'll be our technical home with pitches. And the primary goal there was two reasons we picked Dominican Republic. One, it's central for everybody to get to. Two, you don't need, I think 99% of our countries don't need a visa to get there, which is a big problem when we have stuff in the US, especially with Central American and Caribbean. So it limits the cost. And, and it's also an opportunity to centralize a lot of our youth tournaments, right? Both boys and girls. We're now on a consistent basis. If you run a federation, for the next X amount of years, you're always going there for your 15s, 16s, and 17s. It's much easier to budget, much easier to negotiate charters, for instance, which, as we know, traveling in CONCACAF is not exactly like in Europe where you can hail an Uber to go play matches. It's a little difficult in CONCACAF. And so this is really not only a great football decision because you're creating a home of football, and there are many things you can do there, refereeing courses, coaching courses, but it also it's a smart business decision in terms of sort of stabilizing your costs and reducing your costs.
Will there be?
Going to that what are the sizes of the pitches? Because we were talking about Canada and Mexico playing in, I think it's Texas next month or March, right?
It's in SoFi.
Oh,
you're talking about the
sorry.
Nations League Final Four? Yeah, it's SoFi. Yeah.
So would the Dominican have a pitch that's 15, 20,000, 10 in that zone that other, an exhibition, a friendly could be played there?
So what we're doing, we're building. So there's actually a video online on our website. You can go see what it kind of will look like. So we're building approximately 7 pitches. So it'll be like if you've gone to places like IMG Academy and ESPN, it'll be obviously not that big. We don't have Disney's money, but it'll be something like seven or 8 pitches, right? And then a central pitch will be like a little stadium, but not that big because the reality is senior football for those big countries are not going to be played there, right? It'll be more like, for instance, if you take our Nations League on the senior level, countries that play in League C could play there, maybe even League B. League A, it's a different stratosphere. That's kind of like our top teams that are currently competing. It'll be for youth football. And then also, there's a commercial component to it. A lot of professional teams, especially, from the north, like to come down to warmer climates. It'll be a great facility for something like that where you can have your training camp or you can have your mid-season break. In the Dominican Republic, and the amenities around there are tremendous, right? In terms of hotels and all that kind of stuff. So there's 2 components to it, but you're not going to see, I don't think you're going to see Alfonso running down the wing against Mexico in that stadium. So, but you'll see maybe the next Alfonso running down the wing against the Mexican youth team. So that's why we've done it, and our goal is to get it. You're not always gonna complete it 100%. I don't think before the World Cup, but we'll get starting to get usage by towards the end of this year, early next year.
So you might see, for example, Canada in a January camp.
Correct. That's a perfect example. Yeah. So you would get senior football, but it's more on the development side, or maybe smaller countries using it. Right.
Okay. And then next would be Canada's national center. See, it's all happening. It's all exciting times.
Yeah. We need to push for that.
Yeah. Dubs, you're up. Give us a big question focusing on the North American soccer scene.
All right. Well, Vic, part of CONCACAF's growth strategy for the women's game is to really focus on building the competition structure and making it more robust, enhancing the game's commercial value. So we've seen the payoff. You've mentioned it in various interviews, 6 CONCACAF nations qualifying for the Women's World Cup in 2023, delivery of women's coaching and development programs. And then you mentioned the Nations League earlier. So that will be starting in 2028 for the women.
Yeah.
And then if you just look at the W Gold Cup last year, there's a real emergence of a depth of talent in the region, which is super exciting. That said, how can the 2026 Men's World Cup be leveraged as a catalyst for women's football development in our region?
Yeah, I'll take a page of what we did in 2015, Amy, here in Canada with the Women's World Cup. The Women's World Cup leveraged not only the women's game, but the men's game as well. That was sort of, I believe, that event was kind of like the coming out party for the federation. We, and you guys played in the federation before that. Obviously, there were some challenges, but we, I think, launched many things. We launched the bidding for the Men's World Cup. We launched a men's league. We invested into our players playing in the NWSL, which was just starting to get going at that point, right? So that tournament, although it was the Women's World Cup, launched football in general, obviously not only for women, but also obviously on the men's side. I believe the Men's World Cup will do the exact same. So it will, obviously it's a massive event. It's the Men's World Cup, but I think it will provide such energy and leverage that you are going to be able to leverage the game at all levels, right? So on the women's side, on the men's side, of course. And so I think that's the opportunity that we have in this country and in this region to do that. I think there'll be a Women's World Cup around the corner coming as well. And I'm not sure it'll be announced by then, but, obviously U.S. and Mexico were bidding for the last one, and then they took a step back.
Right.
So that's being revisited. And if that could be sort of another anchor, where you have the men, you have also the carrot of a women's in our region coming around the corner. What we're doing at CONCACAF in terms of the women's game on the national team level, but even now on the club level, right? We're starting to see now, obviously we know the NWSL, we have our new women's league here in Canada, but you also are starting to see women's leagues sort of starting to get, they're pushing the envelope in the Caribbean and Central America. And as we know, there's a lot of good players in those countries. I mean, I'm not sure 5 years ago, I would have said she was player of the year for CONCACAF, but arguably she's the best player in CONCACAF is Haitian. Mm-hmm. Not Canadian, not American, and not Mexican, Haitian. And she's an unbelievable player. And Melky Durnay. Yeah, she's an unbelievable player. And so what I'm saying is you can see the investment, and the investment is not, Amy, it's not just straight cash. Of course, it's money, right? It's the emotional investment as a leader that you have to make into whatever part of the game you need to make it in. It's being disciplined in that. It's shutting out the white noise and focusing on football. I always say that to people, especially a lot of your peers actually who are in the game, and they'll call me and ask me, and I say, listen, at the end of the day, issues are important. Of course, we're all human. It's important, but focus on the football. It has to be a football first, and it needs to be run from a business standpoint. And the more you do that, the more you rise the game, whether it's on the youth side, men's game, women's game. And I think we're doing that. And I think it's that discipline and the emotional and the commitment that we've had to the game that I think has really pushed the envelope to, have better competition, have better teams, and ultimately have better players.
Yeah, the straight cash and it's just about the football. I like that as a statement, but I think the approach has to be a little bit more comprehensive and holistic than that. And you have to address the realities of the state of the game in the Caribbean countries in Central America, where the cultural acceptance and perception of the game is perhaps hampering the growth. So how do you get over that hurdle?
Yeah, I think, listen, from the day I walked into now, it's been the change has been tremendous in countries like Panama, Honduras, Guatemala, where I agree with you 100%. When I first walked in the door, there was things said to me that I went, what? What are you talking about? Why don't you have women's football? Mm-hmm. And that's gone, right? So a lot of those cultural barriers have gone, right? In a lot of the countries. I'm not saying everyone, but pretty much the vast majority, and same in the Caribbean. But the next frontier to that is now the investment side, right? And so, and making decisions where, especially at the youth level, where you need to really, invest is, your 15s, 16s, 17s need to be equally invested in, right? And I understand at the senior level, there's cycles and competition cycles and budgets are different every year. Fine, fair enough, right? But and obviously you play more games for World Cup qualifying on the men's side, so obviously your expenses will be higher. So I'm not talking about just a number. It's about the investment in quality in terms of ensuring those opportunities are equal, right? Fine. You only got to play 6 games to qualify. Okay, fine. The other ones play 16. Fine. But they have to look the same in terms of that opportunity those players have. That has really come a long way. Yes, there's still issues, and we've seen them in terms of some of our federations perhaps get their eye off the ball in terms of some of that. But the change in the last 8 years is night and day in terms of that and the opportunities that are now given to women in those countries that, honestly, 8 years ago, they didn't even have a program, right? And now some of them are knocking on the door to qualify for a World Cup. Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, they didn't even have a program. Never mind, some of the other issues we talk about. So the change has been tremendous. Is there a long way to go? Of course there is, but there's a long way to go everywhere too. I mean, we talk about that, and we all look at for instance, the league in England. All the big clubs, but half of those players in that league are part-timers, right? And people kind of don't talk about that, right? Because for me, the best league in the world is the NWSL by far, right? In terms of holistically, right? Yeah, maybe some of the top clubs in Europe are what they are, but holistically, the NWSL for me is kind of like the best league in the world, right? And so I think we need to, head that direction as it relates to the rest of the region. Obviously, there's economic realities in some of the countries, but I think if we can keep breaking down those barriers, we'll get there.
What's your expectation for the NSL this year, Victor? Obviously, brand new league, camps open this week. We saw the growth of the CPL has been, quite slow in some regards. NSL, a lot of hype around it within the football community here. But what's your expectations as Concacaf president?
Well, first and foremost, the one thing I was pleasantly surprised about the CPL was the quality on the pitch. I didn't expect that quality. I got to be honest with you. In the first, I guess, is it year 7 now? And selling players and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, wow. Yes, there has been some the expansion part has slowed down. I agree, but expansion is not everything. And I'd rather them do it right than just expand for expansion's sake, right? We've seen that before in North American leagues, right? And so my hope, to be honest with you, for the the new league in Canada, the new women's league in Canada, is first of all the quality on the pitch, right? And there's been some pretty good signings that I've seen so far. So some surprising ones too, but pleasantly surprised. And so that has to be first and foremost. And then obviously there's the business side, right? Like the sort of, so the game day experience needs to look and sound like it's a professional league, not just League One plus. And no disrespect to League One and my good friend Dino Rossi, who I think is that whole story of the expansion of League One and what they've done cross country is maybe the story of Canada in many, many ways. Quebec, Ontario, British Columbia, a lot of players have come out of there. In fact, the Whitecaps League One team played in our Concacaf Champions Cup, right? So, and they did pretty good. So it's a tremendous story, but I think it needs to be, obviously it's a professional league and it needs to be elevated, right? So, but it has to start with on the pitch quality, and then after that is the sort of the game day experience and the facilities that they're going to play in and all that kind of stuff. And then after that is obviously the business side, right? And obviously we don't have any visibility on that, but the business side where they need to, make sure they're afloat, because the last thing we want is for this not to succeed, and that will hurt the development of the game. And so we need it to succeed, and I think it will.
All right, moving on. Dan Wong.
Oh, hi. If you were a vegetable, no, I'm kidding. Vic, you're 500 days out, or less than 500 days out for World Cup 2026. 3 countries. Over the last month, we've seen these countries going through some difficulties politically, economically.
Really?
Maybe you didn't notice, but there's obviously, with sponsorships, with devaluation of the Canadian dollar, there's all of these challenges on a business level. How is CONCACAF / FIFA navigating this political and economic turmoil?
Well, welcome to my job every day of the week.
I'm happy I'm asking it then.
I know it's front and center, especially in our country in light of the last 2 weeks, but it literally is my job every day of the week. When you deal with countries that governments want to get involved in the game, and we end up suspending them because they crossed the line. Welcome to doing business in Russia with the Russian ruble. Been there, done that. And so it's really, to be honest with you, I don't want to demean, like, oh my God, I understand the issues that are happening, especially as a Canadian in our country. I get it. But from our perspective, it's like, whatever. It's really water off our ducks' back. Like, we deal with sponsors, and we'll put on a great World Cup. We'll deal with governments, regardless of who the prime minister, president, or king or queen or what czar or whatever it is. It's just, and Dan, this is the beauty of football. Football is above it all. And I know sometimes we want to, sometimes some of your media colleagues like to drag us into the mud and thinking we will solve every human rights issue. We will solve every environmental issue. Like, that's not my job, dude. Like, if you want to solve those issues, go knock on the door at 24 Sussex Avenue. Don't come knocking on my door. I put on football tournaments. I put on football development. I get it. Because we're a massive sport, we do have some corporate responsibility like anybody else. But I think what's thrown at the feet of football sometimes is absolutely ridiculous. It goes beyond really the standard and expectation. No other sport is really thrown that. And I get why we're throwing that, because whether it's on the men's side or the women's side, we're the pinnacle of really everything. The biggest sporting event is the Men's World Cup. The biggest women's sporting event is the Women's World Cup. I get it. But, the reality is, we just keep going and do what we need to do to put on tournaments, to develop the game, to help our members. And, one thing people forget is, whether it's CONCACAF or FIFA or UEFA or CONMEBOL, we're a member organization. Like, we're not a private entity. We're not a government. We're a member organization, and all our members are equal. One member, one vote, regardless of your politics, your religion, or any of that. And, and we have to abide by those statutes and treat everybody equally and move on. Having said that, we understand what our responsibilities are, and where we can, we try to help and move the needle like any good citizen should. But I think in terms of what's going on, we just rise above and deal with it.
That's fair.
I think it was yesterday I saw one of Trump's media gatherings. He was at his office by his desk, and in the background, there was the World Cup trophy.
Yeah, I was given to him in his first term.
Oh, was it? Okay, because he's a big football guy, right? Isn't he?
Yeah, actually, his son was in the DC United Academy back then.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's his son that's a football guy. Which, whatever. I'm not saying Trump's not a football guy. Well, I don't think he's a football guy, but yeah. You know what I mean? I think he likes sports, I guess. But his son he was in the DC United Academy at whatever age, 14 or whatever.
He wasn't Omar Gaddafi's son in the Juventus system once upon a time as well?
Yes.
None of it was in the Gaddafi system. I think Jimmy.
Yeah,
did you play that game in Libya?
Yes, I did.
Well,
wasn't that was the game when he got stuck and he went and shook every player's hand?
Oh, yeah.
He gets on the convertible and gives it one of these.
It was the longest substitution in football.
Why?
Yeah, so Libya bought at that time, because of oil and fiat, right? I think they bought 10% of Juventus, and his son signed.
Yeah.
Was he one of the sons that had body doubles and stuff? Like, because I remember
I don't know.
Okay.
Put it this way, I could say this now because his dad's not around anymore. He was absolute shite, but anyway.
That's Victor Montagliani, Gaddafi family.
That substitution was so funny because I remember looking at the referee going, "What's going on? Get him off!" And he's looking at all of us going, "Yeah, right, you get him off."
Didn't Ben Johnson train him as well at one point? I think he did.
Yeah, he was his personal trainer. We walked into the hotel and Ben Johnson was sitting in the lobby.
Right.
And we all went over and said, "Ben, what are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm the personal trainer for Gaddafi's son."
Wow. How do you manage that gig, eh? Jeez. Yeah. All right. One more question for you, Victor. It's from me. There seems to be an appetite within MLS for the season switch to the global football calendar, winter system. And whether it happens or not, I don't know, but it seems like it's gathering some steam. Are you a supporter of that within CONCACAF?
Yeah, I am, in the sense of, I think, listen, I think the next frontier, and I've had these discussions with the commissioner, I've had these discussions with many of the owners. The league has done a great job in many, many ways. Obviously, the expansion of the league, the infrastructure of the league is very good with their soccer-specific stadiums. Hopefully, we get one in Vancouver soon. But I think their next frontier for the MLS is culture. I really think so. I think and part of that is my discussion in the beginning about our Champions Cup. So there's the sort of, I think, a shift in the league. The other one is I think stopping to think that it's the hardest football league to run in the world. And the CPL is second behind that. And the reason why I say that is because no other football league in the world has to compete with the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, and Major League Baseball. It's easy to run a league in Europe. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, period. And that's why, for me, Garber is the best sports commissioner pound for pound of any commissioner in North America, because what he's done in the last 25 years. Is he perfect? Probably not. But he's done a tremendous job, or 26 years, I guess. And so the reality, though, is I think for a long time, we've always looked at the competition being those big 4 or 5 leagues. That's not really our competition. I mean, at the end of the day, the NFL is a monstrosity, right? What are you going to do? I think we need to have that 1 degree of separation. And I think the answer is in the culture of our sport, right? And I think now the consumer is more adept to that. and more adept, even the common consumer, like, before. And it's thanks to things like Ted Lasso. We talked about Ted Lasso. Well, how many people in your life that are not football people or football geeks like us, right? Dan, I'm excluding you.
Over here.
He's a football geek.
Fuck you, Victor. You're
and,
right.
and say, hey man, I love that show. And how many people have turned on to the game because of that? And so now they're starting to understand what Champions League is, and the FA Cup and all this kind of stuff. And because a lot of normal people in Canada were like, well, I don't get it. Like you get released to your national team, and then on Wednesday you play a cup game, and like in the NHL, we just play, we play 180 games, and in the baseball, the Blue Jays play 868 games a year, like right? So. But now the culture is happening, and a lot of our youth, understand that, and they digest the game obviously on their phone and all these kind of things, like and it's funny because I talk to people who know the club that Ronaldo plays in Saudi Arabia, like really, like. Most people didn't even know they played football there now. So I think that cultural shift and changing the season will help, because now we're in line with global football. And obviously they're going to have to figure out some environmental realities in some of our cities. But they could, Germany does it. Listen, we're not the only cold weather climate in the world. Mm-hmm. Germany does it with a kind of a winter break, I believe, right? By the way, they can have their winter break in our facility in the Dominican Republic. So
there's also
come on down. We'll give you a hometown discount.
San Antonio, the NBA has.
So yeah, I'm in favor of it for many reasons. I think from a practicality standpoint, I also think that it doesn't hurt in terms of aligning with the international calendar, Champions Cup, Club World Cup, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of support it. Yeah. Understanding what some of the challenges might be for some of the clubs, but from a principle standpoint, yeah, I do support it.
It's meandering off into a little bit of a different topic, but do you think an additional layer to that challenge in North America with competing with the eyeballs for all of these major sports is also in the talent development? And can the 2026 World Cup, the fact that Mexico, US, and Canada are co-hosting it, be kind of an attraction for the best youth athletes to choose football, like world football, soccer, over the other sports that are competing with the best athletes?
Yeah, no, I it's a great point, Amy. I think and I think, to be fair about that, the US is the biggest probably challenge in that, because of the. I'm not saying we don't have Canadians that don't play baseball or gridiron football, but we don't, right? Like comparatively speaking. So in the U.S. especially, I think it's an opportunity to attract, and have athletes make decisions at a young age to say, hey, you know what? This is my path. I'm not putting on skates, or I'm not going to hold a bat or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's an opportunity there. And for the World Cup to do that, because it's going to be a massive event, bigger than anything they're used to in terms of the other sports that they watch. And so I think it's it's kind of like, I think it's, if you want to compare it to, and there's no real comparison, but I think the 92 Olympics in Barcelona with basketball, with the Dream Team going there, was the start of the boom of European basketball development. And that's why you see, I don't know how many percentages, it's a high percentage of European footballers, basketballers in the NBA now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, the best players are, a lot of the best players are European now, right? Luka just went to the Lakers, and you got Big Vic in San Antonio. You think I'm Big Vic? Yeah. So yes, I think, Amy, it's an opportunity for that little bit of a shift for the younger generation to say, you know what, this is a sport that is for me, right? So hopefully that happens.
Victor, thanks so much. As always, you got through the probing questions and you didn't even answer the vegetable one from Wonger, but that's okay. We'll say that.
Rutabaga.
No, well, no, if I could volunteer what vegetable I think you'd be, I think arugula.
100%.
Is that really a
Spicy?
vegetable?
I just went Italian and the
I
first
have it in.
vegetable,
I have it in. You know what?
arugula.
I have it in the morning with breakfast.
Love it.
Really? How do you cook it?
It's because it's a great detoxifier, and I have it with my omelet and a little bit of arugula.
Ooh,
Yeah, it's very good.
might give that a
Excellent.
try.
Yes, polyphenols. Yeah.
Beg your pardon?
Like to buy a vowel?
This is a steak and kidney pie guy. And
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
I do not have that for breakfast. Trust me.
Well, maybe you should. Maybe
Yeah.
you should. Put it on the side.
Hey, send me some charms.
All right, well, I'll do that for
Yeah.
sure.
Next time I'm on the show, I'll actually eat them while I'm on the show if you want.
Well, yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we could be the official pie supplier of Concacaf. How about that?
Hey, let's
Boom.
talk.
Love it.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
typical.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. And always enjoyable to be on your show. And in my travels, I sometimes plug in my earphones and I listen to you guys speak. Away you go. So well done.
Where you go.
Thank
Thank
you and
you for that.
apologies.
Yes. Apologies
Yes.
for telling you to F off. It was a quick non-thinking response to getting bashed. But thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you, Victor. Great stuff.
Yeah.
That's Victor
Thanks,
Montagliani, Concacaf president. This has been Footy Prime. Make sure you like us, subscribe, and follow. And we'll see you next time. Cheers very much for watching and listening. Bye.